Imagine waking up tomorrow and nothing is wrong. No messages, no one asking where you are, no work waiting, nobody expecting you home. You're completely free. So why does something in you start to ache? And what happens to a brain when that feeling doesn't stop? Let's run it properly. Take someone ordinary. Don't break anything. Don't take their health or their money or their home. Just remove, slowly, every reason anyone has to need them. The children grow up and leave. The job ends. Maybe they even chose it. The relationship finishes. The friends don't vanish, they just drift, the way friends actually do, quietly, over years. Nothing here is a tragedy. Every one of these is a normal life, happening in the normal order. But somewhere in the middle of it, freedom starts to feel like something else, something closer to irrelevance. And here's the first thing worth being precise about. Being alone and feeling alone are not the same. A week of chosen solitude can be the best week of your year. Loneliness is different. It's the gap, the distance between the connection you want and the connection you believe you have, which is why you can be lonely in a full house and perfectly content on your own. Your brain does not treat other people as entertainment. It treats them as information about whether you're safe. And it keeps score. In 2020, researchers at MIT tried something unusually direct. They took 40 adults and made them fast for 10 hours. No food, nothing. Then, on a different day, the same people spent 10 hours in total isolation. No contact, nobody. Then they scanned them and showed them pictures, food, and people. After the fast, a region deep in the midbrain lit up for the food. After the isolation, the same region lit up for the faces. The researchers were careful, and so should we be. 10 hours in a lab is not a year of an empty calendar. The hunger, they noted, was consistently stronger than the loneliness. But something in the way we're built appears to file "I need people" somewhere close to "I need food." Not as a preference, as a signal. Hunger tells you to eat. Loneliness, it seems, is supposed to tell you to go and find someone. So what happens when you can't? Here's where it gets strange. You'd expect loneliness to make someone reach out, reach harder. And at first, it does. But researchers studying long-term loneliness have described something that runs the other way. People who've been lonely a long time appear to become more alert to social threat, not less. Quicker to notice the flicker of disinterest. Quicker to catch the pause before someone answers. Reading the room with the volume turned all the way up. And when you're watching that closely, neutral things stop looking neutral. The unanswered message becomes a verdict. The short reply becomes a message about you. It's not irrational. It's a smoke alarm that's been triggered often enough that it now goes off when you make toast. The uncomfortable part is what that does next. Someone braced for rejection tends to hold back. Holding back reads from the outside as distance. And distance produces exactly the response they were afraid of. The loop closes. Now, be careful with this. It's a model that fits the evidence, not a law. Nobody can tell you which came first in any individual person. But if it's even partly right, then the cruelest thing about loneliness is this. The state itself may quietly make the cure harder to reach. So can you see it? In a brain? In 2021, a review pulled together 41 neuroimaging studies, nearly 17,000 people, asking exactly that. They found loneliness associated with differences across a spread of regions. The prefrontal cortex, the insula, the amygdala, the hippocampus, reward circuitry. Then the authors did something you should always look for. They spent several pages on why you shouldn't overread it. Most of the studies were snapshots, one moment in time, so nothing there can tell you what caused what. The methods varied enormously. More than half the studies had fewer than 100 people in them. These are differences, not damage. Averages across groups, not a scan that could pick you out of a crowd. But one finding is hard to put down. A separate study looked at around 40,000 people in the UK Biobank, and the loneliness signal kept converging on one particular system, the default network. That's the network that runs when you're not doing anything in particular. It's what you use to remember, to imagine, to picture what someone else is thinking. In lonely people, that network showed stronger internal communication. The researcher's interpretation is the line I can't stop thinking about, that the brain may be turning inward, using memory and imagination to generate the company it isn't getting, reconstructing conversations, rehearsing ones that won't happen, populating an empty room from the inside. That's an interpretation, not a proven mechanism, but it's a strangely human thing for a brain to do. Now, we've been asking the wrong question, because nobody is around and nobody needs me are not the same sentence. You can be surrounded, invited to things, on the group chat, and still walk around with the feeling that if you didn't show up, the day would run identically without you. That's not a shortage of people, that's a shortage of being required. And it's worth asking what your identity was actually built on, because for a lot of people, it wasn't built on who they are. It was built on what depended on them. The parent whose children needed feeding, the person whose job didn't work without them, the partner someone came home to. Take the dependency away, and the person is still there, but the structure is gone. The reason the day had a shape. There's research here too, and it's some of the largest in the field. In a cohort of more than 150,000 people, those who reported a stronger sense of meaning in life were less likely to develop dementia over the following years. Pooled with 7 other samples, over 200,000 people, the association held. And the same caution applies harder. This is observational. It cannot tell you that purpose protects anyone. It could run backwards. The earliest changes of a disease can flatten your sense of purpose long before anyone gives it a name. But hold the finding next to the question. Something about having a reason to be somewhere keeps turning up in the data on brains that age well. Here's the part I think most people get wrong. The obvious fix for loneliness is more people, more events. Say yes more. But when researchers compared different ways of reducing loneliness, the approach with the largest average effect wasn't the one that added contact. It was the one that worked on how people interpret what's already happening around them. That's 4 trials in one meta-analysis, and the authors said plainly it needed replicating. Hold it loosely. But it points somewhere useful. If loneliness involves a smoke alarm set too sensitive, then filling the room with more people doesn't fix the alarm. And there's the other half, not being with, being needed, which is a stranger, more practical thing than friendship and easier to build than people assume. Something that goes wrong if you don't turn up. A person who's expecting you. A thing you're making that doesn't exist yet. A responsibility. A small one is enough. Not because it's noble, because it puts you back inside the story instead of watching it through a window. So, what happens to your brain when nobody needs you? Honestly, the science is younger than the question. Most of what we have shows association, not cause. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something. But this much seems to hold. Your brain treats connection as a need, not a luxury. When the need goes unmet for long enough, it appears to change what you pay attention to, and it may go looking inward for the company it can't find outside. Maybe the danger was never being alone. Maybe it's the moment you quietly stop believing your presence changes anything. Because the brain doesn't only want stimulation, it wants connection, it wants purpose, and more than either of those, it wants a reason to get up tomorrow. So ask yourself, who would notice if you disappeared? And who would you notice disappearing?